Okay, my name is Micheal Putrynski. I'm from originally Kenosha. I left Kenosha in '63 to join the Air Force, and in my travels of the Air Force, I was at Larson Air Force Base in Washington, then down in March Air Force Base in Riverside, California, and 4 tours in Vietnam. And I started out as an assistant crew chief on a KC-135, and eventually I worked my way to the crew chief 135 and a boom operator. And those 2 positions coincide with each other, and it was 4+ years, and I never regretted joining the military. It gave me a direction, because when I was out of school, there was factory jobs, and I didn't want a factory job. And I knew the Air Force would educate you depending on your surrounding interest and talent, and I thought, give it a try. The first day I went in, I said, I got 4 more years of this. Wow, I didn't know if I was going to like it, but it was great. And during Vietnam, they were short on helicopter pilots, and I signed up for that with the intent. I didn't know I was going to go to Vietnam, but my best buddy said, "Are we crazy? Well, you know, we go over there, and 9 out of 10 of them don't come back." I think I want to go into something else, because I'm the only kid. I come from a farm family, and I could have got out of the military because of that, but I wanted to go in. And I went in at 118, came out at 230. So if they say military food is garbage, I don't know, I must have ate a lot of garbage, you know. So, but that was my introduction to the military, and I wish I would have stayed in and retired from them. Boot camp, I'll tell you the first day. We marched, and then we had to break for lunch, and you get your mess kit and you got to dip it in hot water. It was a garbage can to sterilize it. And so then you go into the food line, and I got a baked potato, a piece of liver, green liver that I absolutely hate, and 2 things of milk. So I drank the milk, ate the potato, and I took the spoon and I dug a hole, and I put the liver in there and I put a stone on it. To this day, I never have liver at my house. So, but you know, you got to get acclimated to a different life. And then when you go through that life and you get out as a civilian again, you think to yourself, how in the world do the civilians make it? Because you're so traumatized as far as military life, and everything is regulated, and it's just, you don't have to think. You come out here and nothing is right. But you know, you got the people that had the military background, and you can tell after you've been in, you can tell when you meet somebody if they've ever been in or not. And there's a big difference. I went to flight school to study the KC-135, which back then in '63 was the footprint of the Boeing 707. And that was in the commercial side of aviation. And once I got out of that, I scored quite high on that. And they gave me, I was the assistant crew chief on a KC-135, and usually you got to wait a year, but it was a very normal career change for me. And I think I can say, because I was raised on a farm, and as soon as your feet touched the ground, you could drive the tractor, you could do this, you could do that, you worked. I could never go into 4-H or Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts or anything, because there was always work to do. And so with that said, when I got out with 4 years of 707 training and working hands-on, I got a job at United Airlines as a maintenance rep on the same type of airplane, except it didn't have a boom. So wherever their airplane went, and it flew almost every day or every other day, either the crew chief or the assistant had to go with it, because if you ever had to land someplace on an emergency, you got to have maintenance. You got to have one of you guys. So that really, I liked flying. I liked the ability to make decisions, and they give you a $500 million airplane to take care of. It was just wonderful. I try to talk to my grandkids into it. None of them are interested. I don't know why, but anyway, it was good for me, but not for some other people. I was on a gaggle mission out of South Vietnam, and I was refueling some fighters. I could fly in and out in Thailand because there was 4 Royal Thai air bases that were long enough for me to land and take off, because I needed the length of a runway to take off. And I think we were in Bangkok, and we blew number 4 motor, and we were right at the cuff of rotating, and we took off, but we couldn't make the trip. So when everybody else took off, then we dropped the fuel through the boom to land, or else you'd do structure damage, and repaired the motor. And that was kind of, I think I had 2 close calls. One, when I was down on the boom, there was a storm, and you could see in the horizon the fighter plane on another airplane got hit with lightning, and it traveled on through that airplane, up the boom, and into the mothership, and they both blew up. And that particular airplane, you're like a flying gas station. If anybody needs fuel, you got it, you got to give it up. And with doing that, you just save enough so that you can break away and bail out. So there is some hazards. It's not all glorious, but it is a very exciting job. And I flew around the world a couple times. And for me, living on a farm, I never got out of the state till I went in the military. And then when I got out, United Airlines left a note on the door in the dorm that they would like to talk to me. And I went to Parks College in St. Louis, and that was where United Airlines would recruit a lot of professional people. And for pilots, and I was a structural engineer when I got out of there. And that was another segment of my life that was very interesting. But when I was with United, I got on the FAA crash investigation team, so that if there was a crash, they have to send specialists, and you gather the bodies, you gather all the evidence, and in the hangar, they put this airplane back together again with wire, and they can find what went wrong. And you know, it's an interesting part of somebody's life. And when I was in the military, one of the sergeants goes, you know, since you're so good, what you should do is do some home courses. Told me about it, so I signed up. So when I got out, I had all my license except one. And I went to Parks to get that. And it gave me structure. So, you know, I'd be lying to you if I said it was a hardship, but it wasn't. It was very, very nice. Yeah. And so, you know, down in my study, I got a map of the world, and the blue represents the pins represents the Air Force, and the red it represents United Airlines, and it's covered. So for a long, long time, I mean, I'd be flying 3-4 days a week. And when I got out, my best buddy, Tom Peters, took over my airplane. And I got out in September of '67. He was supposed to get out in January of '68. And so his last trip, he took the airplane to Minot, North Dakota. And the Air Force regs are the highest ranking member qualified to fly could fly it. Okay. Well, there was a general on board, but he was a fighter pilot. And the fighter pilot and a wide-body airplane are two different animals. And so when he took off, he over-rotated and crashed. And everybody perished. And that was rough on me because he was like a brother. And we had our life pretty much figured out what we're going to do, where we're going to do it, and all that. And I think I have remorse because that could have been me. I just got out 2 months before him. So, you know, it happens. And when I got onto the military health and welfare, they told me, you're dead. Well, here I am. I'm not dead, but you got no records. Well, I don't know what to tell you, because I don't either. So I had 12, 14 years of going back and forth. And I wrote letters to Paul Ryan when he was Speaker of the House. I hit every senator, everybody I could. They could only go so far, but all my information that I needed was over here. They couldn't get any farther. So I was stymied. What are you going to do? I kept getting rejected, and I'd apply again, keep going. It was like 12 years, 14. Finally, one guy that flew with me, he was up in Boston, Massachusetts. And we talked once in a while, and I asked him, can you write me a buddy letter? He said, sure. And what he wrote was so convincing that when I had to go to in front of a judge 3 or 4 times, the judge would read it, and he goes, if you don't have any records, you got this right here. And that proves that you were where you said you would be. So that opened a lot of doors. And since then, he's passed away. But, you know, I could go on. There was always adventure. And I got to say, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. The best. Not to have to work so hard to get the benefits. If you were affected and you got physical limitations, you know, you have to go through a lot of questions and answers, and then finally you go one-on-one with a judge, and it seems to be stagnant. If you were in the military, they know you were in the military, and you can't cover your bases with paper. I mean, every time I flew, you get orders and this and that. You'd have a stack of paper like this. And I'd always write a letter to my mother. But when she passed, I threw all those letters away because they weren't going to do me any good. So I think that's about but they're overworked. The veteran policies and that, they're overworked, and they do the best because I just got confirmed to the fact that what I said, and I am a medical mess myself, because there are things that you will carry with you into civilian life, like PTSD. And then it'll rub off on your family and your kids. And so I thought I was normal and everybody else was abnormal. Well, hoity ho, I'm the one that's abnormal. And once I got on some meds, I have to take classes, but this is all aftermath, you know. And nobody knew going in, and Vietnam was not a picture perfect war, if there's ever one. And when I got out in '67, I came into San Francisco, and you got eggs thrown at you, tomatoes thrown at you, foul language at you. I think I was out maybe 40 years. I was in Tennessee getting gas in my truck. The first person after 40 years said, "Are you a vet?" Well, I had stickers on my truck. I said, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "Thanks for serving." I couldn't believe after 40 years that was the only one. Because everybody who has gone in and come out, this was a wasted war. What are we here for? You know, even today, the answers are going to be different. So, but I made it. A lot of them didn't. And one thing I got to say, because you're a lady, and the Air Force has got a state-of-the-art airplane, the F-35. You know who pilots the F-35s? All ladies. Because their reaction time is better than a guy's, and they got superior reflexes. Because you don't have time to think and read the book. You're in action. And so that's what they do. They do a wonderful job. So if you ever want to go in, give them a try. Yep. As with anything, there's always an accident. And I was flying from England by the North Pole. We were ferrying some fighters, so they couldn't make it from England to the States. So we had to keep them refueled. And in doing that, there was a co-pilot that got sucked out of the window. The window cracked and shattered. And so it wasn't on our airplane, but it was on another one that you fly in a unison group together. And when they pulled him in, this was like on a February. So you can imagine what the weather's like now. Now you're up 30,000 feet. The temperature, he instantly blew up. His face, his hands, double the size. So we had to land in Elmendorf, I think. And they put him into a hospital, but he didn't make it because he was just frostbite. And you know, you realize there is some downside on all these things, but it was just his time. Just like with my best buddy, Petey, it was his time. It could have been mine. So, and when we were training for being a chopper pilot, he kicked me in the shoulder. He goes, "Hey, are we dumb or what?" I said, "Why? Nine out of 10 guys ain't gonna come back." I said, "Well, I think I'll get out of this chapter of my life and go into another one." And so they allowed me to do that. And yeah, you could go in harm's way anytime. If you ever see these movies that publicize the life of Vietnam people, the North and the South, and we're with the South, and you know, they were devious, they were smart. Well, they lived in the jungle. You and I don't, but they did, and they had many, many, many traps set. And once you got into a trap, if you got out, you wouldn't make it anyway. So, and I just wanted to get out. If they would have sent me to Germany or something, I'd have made it a career. But everybody had to go in that fishbowl over there. So, you know, it's a life experience. Hopefully, your generation don't have to go through anything of that, because it's just horrific. Amazing grace, really, because I've been touched several times with just getting almost to the pearly gates, and somehow miraculously I got pulled back. Amazing grace. hmm It's not really related, but it's a personal one to me that I survived. And I'm going to have my two daughters sing Amazing Grace and Ave Maria at my funeral. So I had a cousin that came down. He goes, "What's all that for?" I said, "Those are the places that I went to." He goes, "Holy cow." I said, "Yeah. Yep." As far as traveling, I have traveled a lot. Because then when I left the military, got on with United, we were ferrying troops to Afghanistan. Well, I would fly with the airplane from the West Coast to New York, and then I'd have to disembark and let them go. But when it came back empty, or what the ones that are returning to I could funnel them back to the States. And they didn't want me to go over. So, and oh, I could go on, but it's just part of my job with the airlines and with United and the Air Force. And I can't tell you how proud I am. Yeah. It's really been a slice of life for me. And I hope I don't mind you going in, but under different conditions. And that's why I went in the Air Force. I didn't want to shoot at anybody, and I didn't want them to shoot at me. So I'm going to go in the Air Force. But there were still people that died, got shot. I mean, even though we were on a base, the base was secured by native people. So you don't know, you don't do a background check on them. Like your motto is be prepared and serve and all that, which is diligent, and that would coincide with the military. But you take a look at some of these movies that they're making, and I watch to see how official they are. And they're pretty close, pretty close. And to go in the trenches like that, it's not fair. So hopefully you won't have to. But if you do get in and you get into their school system, they spend a lot of money on educating you. Where I couldn't afford that. I had to go in. So hopefully you'll be okay. But after I got divorced, I really thought of going back in again. Because I had a purpose in there. I was in there in 63, 64. Each year I did a tour, Utapao, Takali, and Bangkok. There was 5 Royal Thai air bases, and we used 3 of them for the length of the runways. And I was working for United, and they had a DC-8 go into Vietnam on a Bob Hope show. There's 2 parallel runways. One was a long one was short. United guys took the short one by accident. So when they had to fly out again, they couldn't take any people. They stripped it of all the galleys, cargo, everything. And they would fly into the other one, then they could load it back up again. When I got out of college and I got recruited to go out to San Fran, there was a Japan Airlines, JAL, Shiga, because they don't have numbers on their airplanes, they got names. And it landed on the bay, in the bay water, because the altimeter had moisture in the system. So when it landed, it floated, and they dragged it to the Coast Guard to go up a ramp, and all the Boeing, Douglas, everybody was bidding on the job. It was a fairly new airplane, and United got it. So when I got recruited, I went out there, and that was maybe a 2-3 year project. And it was just my first time. I'm thinking, wow. So they took the top of the wings off. It's 2 pieces. It goes halfway into the fuselage here, then another skin over here. And so this was the first time it was done, and we took the wing panels off. We piloted the holes, and now we're going to rivet them back in. And all of the holes, you're looking at probably $100,000 of 4 pieces of wing. They weren't where they're supposed to be. And I'm thinking, my first job, and I screwed it up. And some old timer said, "Did you check when you pulled the wings apart where the tide was?" Well, he was right, because we went back in and the tide was in and it was out and the airplane shifted. And so there, you know what? That was just a saving grace there. I've had a very, very interesting career life. It would have been better if I would have been a chopper pilot. But like I told her, you know, I probably would have never made it.